All right, we're going to be talking today about lesson 10.2 about how to diagram data. So last time we talked about how to organize the data and how to use the different, what we call measures of central tendency, the range, median, mode, and mean. And now we're going to be talking about how we can organize that in a visual format that will help us. So, first of all, in order to understand how to organize it, we need to learn a couple more terms to help us as we organize the information. One of the ways we can organize data is by splitting it into 4 equal groups. Now, if you split $1 into 4 equal groups, you get quarters, right? So a quartile is a fourth of a group. So a quartile is when I divide all of my numbers into 4 equal groups. Each group we call a quartile. So we have 3 different quartiles that we're going to be talking about. The first is the lower quartile. All the lower quartile is basically the middle number, the median of the first half of the numbers. So if I were to cut my numbers in half and then cut my first half in half, that is my lower quartile. My upper quartile is the same thing, but with the upper half of numbers. So again, I cut them in half, and then I take my upper half and cut that in half. The middle number is my upper quartile. My middle quartile is just my median. That's the median for everything. That's the same thing we talked about in last lesson. So the middle quartile is the normal median, the median for all the numbers. Now, just like we did with measures of central tendency, your first step is going to be to order them from least to greatest. It's very important for almost everything in this beginning of the chapter. Always start off by taking all your numbers and putting them in order from least to greatest. Now, once you have that done, let's look at these numbers down here. I've already put these numbers from least to greatest. Notice that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 numbers. So since I have 12 numbers, remember if it's an even number, I have 2 middle numbers. So to get the median, I'm going to have to add those 2 numbers together, 39 and 40, divide by 2. So my median would be 39.5. Remember, if it's an even number, I have to add the 2 middle numbers together and divide by 2. If it's an odd number of numbers, well then I just have 1 number in the middle, and that is my median. Now, how do I find my lower quartile and my upper quartile? Well, for my lower quartile, since this is an even number of numbers, I can just split it right down the middle right here. So this is my middle quartile, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to split it, so I'm going to say, what is the middle of these numbers? That is my lower quartile. And then what is the median of these numbers? That is my upper quartile. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 numbers, so again I have 2 in the middle. So for my lower quartile, just like for my median, I have to add the 2 numbers together and divide by 2 if there's 2 in the middle. So my lower quartile is 29.5. Here, those are the 2 middle numbers, 46 plus 50. Divide by 2, I get 48. That's my upper quartile. So, if there's an even number, you're going to include this lower one that's in the middle with the lower half and the upper one with the upper half. What about if there is an odd number of numbers? So let's say, for example, I have 2, 2, 5, 7, 8, 8, 12, 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 13. I have 9 numbers. Well, remember when I have 9 numbers, I only have 1 number in the middle. So in this case, the number that's in the middle is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's this 8 is in the middle. So that is my median. And when I only have 1 number in the middle, then I don't include the median with the upper part or the lower part. So now I'm just going to look at these numbers, and then I'm going to look at these numbers. So if I have an even number, I'm going to include, there's 2 numbers in the middle. The one that's lower, I'm going to include with the lower half. The one that's bigger, I'm going to include with the upper half. If there's an odd number, I only have 1 number in the middle, and I'm not going to include that with either half. So now again I have 4, so I'm going to look at these two. That's my lower quartile. So I'm going to do 5 plus 2 is 7. Divided by 2 is 3.5. Here, 12 plus 13 is 25. Divided by 2 is 12.5. So this is my lower quartile and my upper quartile. So it's very important when I am finding my quartiles that I figure out first, is it an even number of numbers or an odd number of numbers? If it's an even number, then I'm going to include all of my numbers here, all of my numbers here. If it's odd, I'm not going to include the middle with either one to find my upper and lower quartiles. Now, there is another couple numbers we need to talk about. Upper extreme is just my biggest number. Lower extreme is just my smallest number. Interquartile range, remember our range is my biggest number minus my smaller number. But sometimes that can be thrown off. Let's say in high school, I want to figure out the range of the heights of high schoolers. But let's say in high school, everyone in high school, most people in high school are between 5'5" and 6 foot. But let's say we get a transfer student into Heritage, and this transfer student is 8'2". Well, now the range is going to be a lot bigger than the actual range in the high school. So it's going to be better for me to use my what we call the interquartile range to give me a better idea of the actual range of heights in the class. So the interquartile range is very simple. It's the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. Remember, the range is the biggest number minus the smallest number. But the interquartile range is my upper quartile minus my lower quartile. So for these numbers, my range would be 70 minus 16. But my interquartile range is going to be 48 minus 29.5. So that's the interquartile range. My upper quartile minus my lower quartile. Now, using all these numbers, I can make my first diagram. And we call this diagram, it's a pretty cool name, it's called the box and whisker plot. So all the box and whisker plot is using my 5 numbers. My lower extreme, my lower quartile, my median or my middle quartile, my upper quartile and my upper extreme. So it's called the box and whisker because it has a box in the middle, and that box is going to contain my 3 middle numbers, my 3 quartiles, my lower, middle, and upper quartile. And then the whiskers are going to be my extremes. So I'm going to start this box and whisker plot by drawing a number line. So if I use these numbers right here, notice I have numbers all the way from 16 to 70. So if I try to mark every single number, that's going to be a huge amount of numbers. So it doesn't have to be every number. I'm going to just do every 10. So I'm going to do every 10 numbers on my number line you can see here. I'm going to start off by putting dots above, make sure you put them above, not on, above the number line for each of my 5 things. So first of all, my lower extreme is 16, so 16 is a little past halfway between 10 and 20. So again, above, not on, not here, above, about halfway between 10 and 20 is my lower extreme. Next, my lower quartile is 29.5. That's almost 30, so I'm going to put it right almost at 30. Next, I have my median or my middle quartile, 39.5. Again, that's going to be right before 40. Okay? Next, I have my upper quartile. That's 48. That's going to be a little bit before 50. And finally, I have my upper extreme, which is 70. So it's going to be right there on 70. So when you're doing your box and whisker plot, start off by doing a number line. You can do every 5, every 10, every 20. It just depends on how big your range of numbers is. Then above, you're going to do your lower extreme first, your smallest number. Then your lower quartile, then your middle quartile, your median, then your upper quartile, and then your upper extreme. Put a dot on each one. Next, you're going to put a box, but your box is just going to be around your middle 3 numbers. It's going to touch the lower quartile and the upper quartile just like that. It's going to look like a rectangle. Finally, I'm going to put a line in the middle of the box through my median, just like that. So that's the box of the box.